How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Alton Trigg. I am rejoined by my co-host, Drew Johnson. It's been a minute, DJ. There's been a lot go on in the last month plus. I know some people were thinking like, oh man, Luka got traded and these guys mailed it in. That's not really the case. There's a lot of life stuff that's been going on both of our sides, and it's taken a minute to catch up. And we're finally uh, starting to get back in our normal groove here. But we're back. We're talking about Mavs basketball, even though it hasn't been in the greatest of places the last few games. They got stomped by the Clippers 2 times in a row. First time without Anthony Davis. Second time Anthony Davis and Derek Lively played. Didn't matter. They got stomped again. So currently, the Mavs are 38-41. They're still 2 games up in the loss column on the Phoenix Suns for the final play-in spot. And look, before Wednesday night, before the end result of that upcoming Mavs-Lakers game goes final, the Mavs could still clinch even if they don't win, because Phoenix, their next 2 games, they have back-to-back games. They play the Warriors, and then I believe they play OKC. So, it's looking like even if the Mavs have to, what's it called? Failing upward. It looks like that might happen to the Mavs when it comes to the play-in. I have a positive. I have a couple positive takes. We're going to save those for later because I think it would be nice to have those takes after we talk about what's coming up on Wednesday night, which is Luka, returning to American Airlines Center. First time back in Dallas since the trade. There's going to be a lot of emotions. I mean, it's, for me personally, I'm kind of viewing this as a chance for like real closure, because not only, mid-season trades are hard under normal circumstances, but to have an unprecedented situation like this with Luka being the face of the franchise for nearly 7 years and then just uprooted like he was, it's been a long, drug out 2+ months here. But he's going to be back. He's, we'll see how the game itself goes, because the Mavs are on 3 days rest. The Lakers are playing OKC tonight. We'll see if, who's actually playing for the Lakers, if they, save everybody for tomorrow's Super Bowl, so to speak. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be good. Even if the Mavs don't win, even if, Luka comes out there and torches the Mavs for 80, which he deserves to do if he wants to. I think it's going to be good, because it's going to bring a chance for closure. It's going to bring a chance to, at least move on until the next season, or until the playoffs, if the Lakers end up winning a title, which would be absolutely awful for all of our psyches. But what are you feeling right now as we prepare to see Luka in a Lakers uniform at American Airlines Center?
I'm a little concerned because you say that there's going to be closure, but I really think that, and you said this earlier, so I'm really just echoing what you said, but I agree with it. I don't think we're going to get closure for this trade, like the magnitude of it and the apparent one-sidedness of it, for years. I don't think that closure is going to come for years. Now, if Luka does come home and pop off for 80, I think that makes things worse. And I don't know that makes it necessarily worse for fans. I mean, I guess it does. It just makes us all the more angry. But I think it looks really bad on Nico if that happens. Obviously, it's just one game out of 82, so take from that what you will. But this kind of feels like it's going to be more than a game, if that makes sense. It's going to be, there's a lot of emotions that are going to be involved. Obviously, on Luka's part, as well as probably Luka's former teammates. I mean, it's just going to be it'll be a really strange game. That's what I really look for it to be, is just a very strange occurrence.
It's a Super Bowl, so to
Yeah,
speak. I don't say that in like any kind of derogatory meaning or anything, but I mean, because that's insinuating that the Lakers care more about this game than they do, or the Mavs or the Lakers care more about this game than they do their play-in or playoff hopes. But I don't think that's the case. But I mean, I just naturally there's going to be more to this game than there would be of any other regular
right.
season game. I mean, there's going to
Exactly.
be more emotions, not just from Luka, but like Anthony Davis. He hasn't seemed too happy with how things went down. He's going to be excited to play because he didn't play in that first game when the Mavs played the Lakers following the All-Star break in LA. He was out at that point. So, well, it'll be his first time playing against his former team, and we'll see how it goes. But look, I mean, I don't think Nico can have any more flack than what he's already gotten, given how things have gone. I think if Luka went out there and exploded for 100 points, if he broke Wilt Chamberlain's record, I think at this point, like a lot of Mavs fans are just kind of numb, to stuff like that. So I don't think it would matter as far as like adding more on to what Nico already has on his plate. But it could prolong, that those angry feelings that everybody's feeling toward him so far.
I was about to say, it might be like getting stung on top of another bee sting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like getting punched in an already bruised area of your body. That's the way that I would describe it if something like that happens. Like the overall meaning behind it is kind of, it's a regular season game at the end of it. But you better believe that both teams had that game circled on the schedule as soon as that trade went down. So it means more from an emotional standpoint than it does, an actual what this means for like playoff contention and stuff like that. It just means more emotionally, I think. It'll be interesting to see. We won't know until after it happens what the fallout's going to be. But man, if Luka comes in and goes off, and I think he will.
Well, look, I mean, we've talked about it. This is a trade that, even in the early stages, like in the first few days, we were just like, this has a chance to be the worst trade in NBA history. Then we saw Anthony Davis against the Rockets before he got hurt, and both him and Kyrie on the court, and we were like, oh, okay, well this could be this could be fun, So and then unfortunately Kyrie, blew out his knee. He tore his ACL. Thankfully, it was just the ACL. Like no other ligaments were affected. So that's a silver lining, I guess. When he comes back, at least he didn't have extra ligament damage. But it's the fact of the matter is it's going to be a while before we get to see this roster in its entirety and what they're capable of at full strength. And that's assuming that there aren't any other injuries along the way, before Kyrie gets back.
Injuries and movement, like just like player movement, because I mean,
right.
He's not going to be back until,
December at the absolute earliest.
Yeah, there's a lot that can happen between now and then, guys. I mean, for God's sake, like we've said this before, but the roster could look completely different, like completely different. So, we may never get to actually see what the original vision was for this, if there was one. And it's kind of sad because we did see a glimpse of it in that first half of that Houston game, and it was great. Like we were really, I mean, defensively we were amazing, and the Rockets are no slouches this year. I mean, that was actually very impressive. But after the Kyrie injury, you may never get to see what the original plan was with this, and it'll be interesting to see how Nico pivots. I fully expect us to trade that draft pick to try and get, a third potential star. So, who knows what we look like at December of next year.
And just for the record, I think both you and I are adamantly against that, given what the Mavs draft draft assets look like 2027 through 2030. I really think they need to utilize the 2025 and 2026 draft, because after that, I mean, they're still going to have some picks, but some of those are swaps. So you're not controlling the pick you get. You could end up, if you end up being bad, you're probably going to end up with a worse pick in some of those years. So they need to take advantage, especially this year. I mean, this year's draft is just stacked. Like having a lottery pick or a fringe lottery pick in this year's draft is, would be like having a top 7 pick in previous drafts.
Mm-hmm.
So they really need to take advantage of that, and I hope they don't make any, hasty moves, just because of how things have turned out so far after the Luka trade. And look, here's some brief numbers on how things have gone for the main people involved in that trade. So since the trade happened, Luka has played in 25 games for the Lakers. The Lakers are 16-9 in those games. Luka is averaging 27.3 points, 8.3 rebounds, 7.7 assists, 1.6 steals, and 3.8 turnovers. He's shooting 42.1% overall, which isn't great, but he's shooting nearly 36% from three. So all of this coming off of, when he was out for 2 months with that calf strain, it's not too bad. I mean,
also you have to take into consideration that whenever he first started playing for the Lakers, his performances were nowhere near what they are now. So
yeah, he's picking it up.
Yeah, so I mean, as the season goes on, and as they continue to have him in that Los Angeles culinary lifestyle, so to speak, to slim him down a little bit, which he has. I mean, you can look at pictures and see the guy's in really pretty good shape right now. He could really have a special playoffs this year, honestly, which that is what's going to hurt.
I wouldn't doubt if he did have another special playoff run in him. I want to see how he holds up physically, because you and I both know when it gets to postseason, the level of intensity and defense skyrockets. Officials let a lot more stuff go than what they do in the regular season. I think they should call it the same no matter what, but that's just how it is. That's part of the reason the Mavs were able to get to the finals last year, is because they were so physical defensively, and officials let a lot of that go in the postseason. So I'm interested in seeing how he holds up, over the course of potentially multiple 7-game series, given the issues he's had with the calf, the calf, the Achilles, or, the knees. He's had some issues with his knees over the last year. So we'll see. I'd be lying to you. I'm not saying, I don't want to say this and make it seem like I'm justifying what the Mavs did with the trade, because I'm not. But, to say that Luka has looked his best since the trade has happened would be a lie. I mean, he just hasn't. He's had some really good games, but he's had a handful of stinkers in there too. And he just hasn't looked like himself. So, we'll see how it goes. But that was Luka's number since the trade. Anthony Davis, he's only played in 7 games so far. The Mavs are 5-2 in those games, and he is averaging 20.6 points, 9.6 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 1.7 blocks, and 2 turnovers, shooting 45.5% from the field, 26.1% from three. Which is not great. we know he is capable of doing better than that, but again, like with Luka, it's obvious that this guy isn't 100%.
No,
he came back and he wants to help the Mavs fight for the play-in and potentially make the playoffs and all that stuff, but I'd say Anthony Davis has been playing at about 70%. He's just not all there, and it has to do with that abdominal strain which I've said since day one, he probably needs to just go ahead and have surgery on it. So he's not worried about it, heading into next season. So,
and why doesn't he? All right, so I'm about to piss people off, but you and I have talked about this at length. Why don't we just shut Anthony Davis down and make sure he is completely healthy next season to go along with Kyrie Irving? So maybe we see a glimmer of what we were hoping for. Because let's face it, outside of us maybe hopefully winning a play-in game and then going to play OKC in the first round and beating them and, laughing about that, there's really – I don't see us going particularly far in the playoffs. And the reality is, the farther we go, the worse our draft pick's going to be. At some point, we have to ask ourselves, what's the point? Because we're not making it to the NBA Finals with a 60% Anthony Davis, no Kyrie Irving. It's just not happening. B. Will's been great, but he's not Kyrie Irving. So.
And that's a great question for like 5-6 games ago. But I mean, now at this point,
yeah,
it's like, well, you might as well just like I mentioned in one of our chats earlier, running out a ground ball. You might as well just run that ground ball out, and just see what happens. And I just hope he doesn't re-injure himself in these last couple of games.
Yeah, and then he's out till December.
Yeah. I hope not. But it's the same with Luka. These guys have respectable numbers since the trade, but they're just not quite themselves. And Luka has played in way more games. Let's see, Luka played in 25 games for the Lakers since the trade. Anthony Davis 7 for the Mavs. So that's not great.
No.
And then finally, Max Christie. He's played in 29 games for the Mavs. The Mavs are 12-17 during that span. Obviously, it's a little skewed because, the Mavs have had so many injuries. Gafford's been out for a long time. AD missed a lot of games. Derek Lively missed 2 months. Obviously, Kyrie went down. They've had the issue where their two-way guys who showed out, Brandon Williams and Kessler Edwards, they reached their limit for games you can play on a two-way contract. But, because of that Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin trade, the cap restrictions, even though they had an open roster spot this whole time, they haven't been able to sign anybody to it until later this week, which leads me into our next point I'm going to talk about as soon as I talk about Max Christie. But again, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But in those 29 games with Max Christie in the lineup, they're 12-17. He's averaging almost 11 points a game, 4.2 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shooting 40% from the field, not great, and 37.2% from three, which is pretty good. So I think with a healthier lineup for a longer time span, I think Max Christie will have better shooting numbers than what we've seen, because it's like the case with like Spencer Dinwiddie, for example. When he is in a role where he's only having to play like 20 minutes a game, he's fine. Like he has some good moments, but when he gets overextended and he's playing multiple games of like 35 plus minutes a night, he has these games where it's just like, oh my Lord, why is why are we having to endure this? Like the other night in one of those Clippers games, at the end of the quarter, he dribbled the ball down the court, held it for the entire shot clock, took a shot, missed it, somehow got the offensive rebound, and then dribbled out the remaining 8 seconds of the quarter without even getting up a shot, and the clock expired. And you're just thinking, like, what is going on here? So, guys are being overextended. It's not fun more times than not. But that's how all these guys have performed since the trade happened. Now, look, we talked about how the Mavs weren't able to sign any of these two-way guys up until later this week because of salary cap restrictions. Shams Charania posted earlier today that the Mavs are planning to sign Brandon Williams to a standard 2-year contract, which is Very, very well deserved on his part.
Good idea.
Yeah. He came in, he played well. He said he modeled his game after Kyrie, and we've seen that. So that'll be fun to see. And I think, look, here's a little nugget about Brandon Williams that I think is being overlooked a little bit, because I said if the Mavs were able to make it through the play-in and they get to the first round and they play OKC, they have a chance to be like the 2007 Warriors when they upset the number 1 seed Mavs. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, the Mavs are 3-0 against the Thunder without Luka this season. So obviously they've shown that they can beat them even though Luka's not on the roster. And some people say, well, yeah, but Kyrie was there. True. But I'm not saying Brandon Williams is Kyrie. I'm saying Brandon Williams is Kyrie-esque. So, he said he's modeled his game after him. He's played well. In the 5 games that he played before he reached that 2-way contract limit, Mavs were 4-1. And then he reached that limit. He went out, and now they've been 1-3 since he reached that limit. So he's obviously a difference maker. And I'm happy for him. He got his contract. He's going to be back for the play-in and hopefully the playoffs if the Mavs get that far. But I think that's both of our concern, is that, we're more worried about the play-in than we are if the team actually got into that 1 versus 8 matchup with OKC.
Yeah, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, and I know I'm always a Debbie Downer, but I don't know that we get out of the play-in. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Sacramento, we talk about the Mavs having OKC's number. Well, Sacramento has had Dallas's number this year.
Yeah.
And it's looking like, unless the Mavs win out and the Kings lose out these final few games, it's looking like that first play-in game is going to be in Sacramento, which would be tough. Having Brandon Williams back helps, but, man, Zach LaVine's been hot lately. Him and DeRozan combined for 80+ the other night.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. It'll be interesting to see if Klay Thompson can get some redemption. When he was with the Warriors last year, they played the Kings in a play-in game, and he went 0 of 11. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of redeem himself in that situation.
I don't know. Do you think that Klay's kind of just lost interest a little bit, like subconsciously? You know what I'm saying?
I think so.
You think he's kind of like mentally checked out a little bit? I hate to call guys out about that kind of stuff, especially as a podcaster, but something just don't seem right. I don't know.
You really, on one hand, you can't blame him, because I think the Kyrie injury is what really kind of sent him over the edge as far as kind of zoning out and not caring as much. But he's a professional. He says all the right things, but he has to be feeling some type of way seeing how the Lakers are doing, a team that offered him like $80 million in the offseason. He turned it down to go to Dallas. And he obviously didn't know that the Mavs would be giving the Lakers Luka when he did that. And then his former team, the Warriors, they went and traded for Jimmy Butler, and I think they're 20-3.
Yep.
Since that trade.
I didn't see that coming. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I did not see Butler making that kind of impact for Golden
Draymond
State.
Green probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. It's crazy.
What a weird, crazy world.
And then, speaking of crazy stuff that's been going on, we'll just throw this in here before we take off. But the coaching carousel lately has been crazy, because you have 2 teams fighting for top spots in the Western Conference, the Memphis Grizzlies and Denver Nuggets. The Grizzlies, with Taylor Jenkins, he got let go, which was surprising. But, the Grizzlies haven't done anything over the last couple of years. It's been more drama than anything else. Now, the Nuggets with Mike Malone, that one was a shock because he just won a title 2 years ago.
Yep.
Winningest coach in Denver history, and they let him go today. That's crazy.
Listen, your job is never safe. If you piss off the wrong people, and this goes for just coaches in general, your wins and losses have something to do with your security. And if you win, your enemies can't hurt you. But if you lose, your friends can't help you. So I think that, and it wasn't even to say that, Malone was losing. I think that Malone just pissed the wrong people off.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
It makes you wonder about the Jason Kidd situation because under perfect conditions or near perfect conditions, everybody healthy, everybody playing on, no major injuries or anything. I think Kidd's a pretty good coach. He's shown that. But when adversity strikes, I wouldn't say he's the greatest, at calling plays and keeping guys. Like, look, you're fighting for a play-in spot. You brought Anthony Davis back to fight for play-in positioning, and then that team just looked like they had absolutely no fight, no want to, no spirit in those 2 games in LA over the weekend. Like, what was that? It was awful.
Well, I mean, I think that has less to actually do with Kidd. I mean, obviously, as a motivator, that's a problem. But these guys are grown men. I think that that the team is kind of split on the direction that they want this thing to go. I think some of them want to fight for a play-in spot, and some of them just are tired of it all. They're exhausted. And I'm going to tell you what, one of those people that I think is exhausted is Klay Thompson, and that's based off of comments that his father has made. Michael Thompson stated that Klay is, quote unquote, in purgatory.
Hard to argue.
Yeah. So, I think you've got kind of a split locker room. I think some people want to fight, and I think some people just want it to be over.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'll accept whatever happens.
At this point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if they lose in the play-in, it'll be a relief because it's over, given how the last couple of months have gone. If they win in the play-in and make the first round, I'm going to become irrationally confident. I'm going to be the irrational confidence guy yet again. And people think I'm crazy for thinking that this version of the Mavs has a shot to beat OKC. But DJ, we've seen it in the past. Certain teams have other teams' numbers at times.
Yep.
Certain players have other teams' numbers at times. I understand Kyrie is hurt. But if Anthony Davis is healthy, if PJ Washington is healthy,
that's the big one.
If the Mavs have a player that is Kyrie-esque, not Kyrie, but can do some of the things that we've seen Kyrie do, getting to the basket, can actually handle the ball, and Brandon Williams
managing
the game, I think the Mavs have a shot to beat OKC and be like that 2007 Warriors team that beat the Mavs. I just see it. We've seen it with OKC. They've shown a little bit of fatigue here lately. They've been so good at such a high level the entire season, and they've kind of let their foot off the gas here a little bit toward the end, which is what we saw with the Mavs, in those last couple games heading into the postseason back in 2007. Mm-hmm. And guess who had the Mavs number that regular season that everybody discounted, going into the playoffs? It was that Warriors team that ended up in the 8th seed. So, I'm telling you, man, if it happens, and it's a long road to get there, but if it happens, I just don't think OKC fans want to see, like, out of any of the choices that OKC could have as the 8th seed matchup in the first round, I don't think they want to see PJ Washington in the Mavs. I don't think so. No. And some people say, oh yeah, well, Chet Holmgren wasn't playing in any of those games that the Mavs won. Well, guess what? Neither was Anthony Davis. So, and I feel like 70% Anthony Davis can hold his own against, Chet, who's very, very good, but he's also very thin. So, we'll see. With the Mavs bigs, Derek Lively back, Gafford back, PJ healthy, Anthony Davis, even though he's not 100%, and then you get Brandon Williams back in there. And then Klay Thompson, he typically has pretty good games against OKC for whatever reason, even before he was in Dallas. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, if we get to that point, you're going to see the return of the irrational confidence guy.
But let me ask you this. Is beating OKC in the first round hilarious enough or worth it in terms of hilariousness to worsen our draft pick? And my answer is maybe. It might be. It would be pretty freaking funny.
It might be, because at that point, you know what? I haven't looked at the actual standings, like as far as records in the East and West combined, at below that line. But I think even if they miss the play-in at this point, or the playoffs, they'd still be like 13th or 14th, I think, in draft positioning. And at that point, you have like a 1% chance of of moving up. So I don't know. I mean, I like in previous years' drafts, I would say no, it's not worth it. In this year's draft, I'm almost tempted to just say go for, if we can have some type of joy come out of this season, upsetting an historic OKC team in the first round, and then still getting a first round draft pick that in previous years would have been like getting a top 10 pick, that would be a pretty good consolation prize, given everything else, how bad everything has gone. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, if we beat OKC in the first round and we get Walter Clayton Jr., I'm in. I'm good.
Man, that guy, he was not good in that first half of that championship game, Houston versus Florida, and Florida looked like they were in hot water. And then when it mattered most, Walter Clayton Jr., he showed that he is a winning player on both sides of the ball.
Ultimate clutch gene. I think he's going to be a player. I really do. A lot of people they discredit these older point guards, saying they have a high floor and low ceiling or whatever. But I mean, you look back at guys like Steve Nash, Jalen Brunson, guys that spent a few years in college and were kind of discounted by pro scouts as being what they were going to be right now, and they were wrong.
Steph Curry.
I think yeah, exactly, Steph Curry, and I think Walter Clayton Jr. fits that mold, specifically the Steph Curry mold. He reminds me a lot of Steph Curry. The way he shoots it from the hip, just, will literally get penetration, dribble it all the way back out, and then just throw it up. Yeah. That's Steph Curry if I've ever seen it. So, am I saying he's going to be Steph Curry? No, but I think he's fun. I really do. I like him a lot.
I see a little Jamal Murray in him too.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of his game in him too. But yeah, look, I mean, if this is a year where I don't think you need to worry about age. Honestly, I think having an older player probably helps the Mavs at the start of next season, because you have a guy with more experience, a steadier hand. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, assuming you don't make a move during the offseason to address your ball handling, you would have, if they end up in position to get Walter Clayton Jr., you'd have him and Brandon Williams, kind of holding the fort down until Kyrie gets back, which wouldn't be a terrible thing, honestly, if everybody else is healthy. So we'll see. Look, things have been very weird over the last few months. We've kind of navigated through it all the best we can. But I do think better days are ahead for the Mavs. It's just it's been a lot to take in a very short amount of time. And I'm hoping that, like I said, and maybe closure isn't the right word for Wednesday night, but, if people can't, experience some sort of closure, maybe it'll be like some sort of acceptance or peace, over what all happened. And they can just kind of move past it and see, see what the Mavs can do going forward. But there's a lot of people that are just they've turned the Mavs completely off, and they're not coming back until Nico Harrison and or Jason Kidd are both gone. So, and I understand that thinking, but it's probably going to be at least another year before we get to that point. And maybe if the Mavs hadn't had all the injuries this year, that would be different. But they have an excuse, even though we may not like it. They have a legitimate excuse they can throw, to ownership and say, "Hey, look, we had bad injury luck this season even before Luka got traded." So we'll see how it goes into this play-in period, playoffs, hopefully, and then into the off season and on into next season. But guys, we appreciate it. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on our Substack page, which you can see right here on your screen with that QR code. You can use your phone camera. It'll take you directly to it. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to get back on our regular posting schedule, and I might come back on here and do like a few solo pods during the week, during my spare time. But again, we greatly appreciate it. We're glad to be back. So we'll see you next time. Have fun watching all the NBA action on Tuesday night, and we will probably, DJ, we might try to do 2 this week. Come back Thursday and talk about what happens in that Lakers Mavs game.
As far as I'm concerned, it's a must. So
yeah, have to.
It's a must.
But we appreciate y'all. You have a good one.
Thanks, guys.